Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to this very important meeting today, Tuesday, December 3rd, in the City of Portsmouth City Council chambers. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we will now have roll call. Please indicate your presence electronically. 7 members of the Planning Commission are present.
Commissioners, before you are the minutes of the November 5th, 2019 public hearing. The minutes need to be amended to reflect the removal of Preston Vaughn and Janelle Hoffler, who are no longer members of the Planning Commission, who are under the absence in November, and to add Edwina Ricks. The chair, with those amendments, is in need of a motion. Commissioner Thompson.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as corrected.
Is there a second?
A second.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to amend the November the 5th minutes, and we are in need of a motion. Oh, you will be voting electronically. The minutes are approved by a vote of 7-0. Announcements of future meetings and conferences. Please note that our next scheduled work session is January the 7th, 2020 at 12:30 p.m., 6th floor conference room, followed by public hearing at 1:30 p.m., City Council chamber. Items reviewed today will be presented to City Council for action at their January the 14th or January the 28th, 2020 public hearing, or as otherwise noted. Planning Commission rules limit a speaker up to 5 minutes to speak. We also ask that everyone please silence your cell phones at this time if you have not already done so. Thank you. Our first item, UP-19-17 Parkview. Elaine F. Harris requests a use permit for a duplex located at 1038 Crawford Parkway. The property is zoned historic residential, HR, and contains a single-family detached dwelling. The Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan's future land use map designates this area for mixed-use residential development. The property is owned by Elaine F. Harris and is further described as Tax Map 36, Parcel 120. Our staff coordinator is Julie Chop. Will the applicant or representative for this application please come forward and present your application at this time? The applicant, okay.
Elaine Harris, the applicant for this use permit, is in the hospital, so there will be no representative for the application. Should I do my presentation again?
Mr. Chairman, would you like a staff presentation? We normally don't do it.
Well, Commissioners, would you like a staff presentation from Ms. Chop? Okay. We don't need a presentation, but if you can answer a couple of questions.
Sure, of course.
Commissioner Youngblood.
Thank you. Ms. Chomp, I understand that this property was a duplex up until recently. Is that correct?
Yes, in 1995, it was, 2015, there was an audit by the city assessor's office, and it reverted back to a single-family dwelling.
Right. So up until 4 years ago or 5 years ago, it was multifamily, and I think you told us earlier that there are other multifamily buildings adjacent to this one, not directly adjacent, but in that neighborhood. Correct?
Yes, within the Parkview neighborhood.
Okay. And this has been vetted by the Historic Preservation Commission, correct?
Yes, there was an application to evaluate the replacement of the windows on the front of the facade and to do roof repairs, which Elaine Harris did receive a certificate of appropriateness to
Okay,
complete.
and did you get any comments from the neighbors?
No feedback from any adjacent property owners or any neighbors.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chop.
Sure.
Commissioners, any additional questions for Ms. Chop? Thank you. Commissioners, the chair is now in need of a motion for commission,
Need to
for,
open the public hearing. I need to open the public hearing.
well, let's do that. Good idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-19-17. If there is anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Jared Snow. I live at 1043 Crawford Parkway, and I'm coming to you as a concerned citizen. No more than a year ago, that house was broken down by the police, and my biggest concern is if we're splitting this up to a duplex, what is to quell any type of more illegal activity in my neighborhood? We've had previous tenants down the street that also had illegal activity. And now those are gone. So I'm seeing an upturn in the neighborhood where things are getting a lot better. And my concern is if we bring another duplex in and bringing in lower income rent, my concern is that we're going to have a repeat of the same exact thing. Also, that being said, we've already have a large amount of duplexes and multifamily establishments in there. Do we really need another one? I think in order to bring the value of the city up, we could possibly, if we stick with a single-family home, that it would help Portsmouth in their economic recovery. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for? Okay.
No question? Okay, Riggs.
Just have a question. How many duplexes do we have over in that area, or is this basically a single-family area?
Ms. Chop? Mr.
Let me
Lowe?
just answer that question. That is a mixed, Parkview is a mixed neighborhood, has a variety of dwelling types, everything from single family to multifamily. I could not give you an exact number off the top of our head. We could certainly check with the assessor's office and get some information back if you'd like that for your next meeting. I'd also suggest, as a thought, since the applicant is not here, if you wanted to address any questions of the applicant, you may want to consider deferring this item to allow them to come back and appear before you at your January meeting, if that's something you'd want to consider.
Commissioners,
I recommend that we,
see if there are any additional speakers.
Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone else here who would like to address UP-19-17? Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, the chair is now in need of a motion for UP-19-17. What is your pleasure? Commissioner Thompson?
I think we should, I would like to make a motion to defer this topic until January so that we can have time to consider the number of duplexes and if there's a relationship between that and crime.
Commissioners, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Thaxton?
A second.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to defer UP-19-17 until our January meeting. You will be voting electronically. Mr. Williams, I think you hit me wrong. This item is deferred by a vote of 6 and 1 abstention. Did you mean to do that? Okay, you did. G. 7-0, deferral until our January meeting.
It should be
6 to
1.
1.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. 6 to 1. Gotcha. Okay. Our next item, UP-19-18 Downtown. Marlon Mulligan requests a use permit to operate an entertainment establishment at 600 Court Street. The property is zoned downtown T4 and contains a vacant commercial structure. The parcel is designated for mixed-use downtown development on the future land use map in the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan. The property is further described as Tax Map 13, Parcel 17. Our staff coordinator is Stacy Porter. I'm not sure if the applicant is here or a representative. The applicant is not here, representative. We are going to open the public hearing on this item. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward at this time, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
I'm Father Grant Stokes from Trinity Episcopal at 500 Court. I come today to, I see that this item is already being deferred. Is that true on the screen? Okay. I ask in that deferment that the members that are trying to open this bar have some conversation with Trinity due to parking. On their application, they list 3 parking places, and we think that is woefully inadequate for a parking plan for an establishment such as this. Our church operates through the week. We have evening events and weekend events, and we think that there will be a clash in parking and use space there, or use of the space there on King Street with Trinity. And we've not been approached by these individuals to come up with any plan or any way to work with us about that. Now, with that said, we do want you to know that Trinity does encourage development downtown. We don't like to see empty buildings next to us, nor do we mind that it's a bar, even though it's a church and I'm in a collar. We will probably, we'll probably be some of their best supporters. But with that said, we do want to be good neighbors, and we hope that they will reach out to us and come to our next vestry meeting, which is December the 18th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-19-18. If there's anyone else here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, the request for the applicant is to defer this application until March. What is your pleasure? Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to defer UP-19-18 until March 3rd, 2020.
Commissioner G?
I second.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to defer UP-19-18 until our March the 3rd, 2020 meeting, and you will be voting electronically. This item is approved to defer by a vote of 7-0. Our next item, S-19-01, Port Norfolk. Meredith Travers of Kozak, Davis, and Reniger, P.C., requests the closure of a portion of Woodrow Street, platted as Fifth Avenue, between Virginia Avenue and Chautauqua Avenue, in order to expand operations of Lola Express Incorporated and build a multi-bay warehouse for tire storage and repair. The future land use map of the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates the property as transportation and surrounding properties as a light industrial area. The property is right-of-way owned by the City of Portsmouth. Staff coordinator is Carl Jackson. Will the applicant or representative for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Avenue, and my husband, Claude Saint-Cyr. We own Lolo Express. We've been in Portsmouth for the past 14 years in the business. And we wanted to, since we own that area, and we wanted to expand it and creating more jobs. We wanted to expand our business, and we would require to close the street. We did put an application to build the building, and we were told by the city, in order to have the bay door, the street must be closed, and that's why we're here. So, any questions, we'd be pleased to answer.
Commissioner Thompson?
I just wanted to make sure that you understand that if the street is closed, the city still has an easement for utilities, which means you can never build on that easement.
We would never build on it. We have the spot where we building the building. It has nothing to do with it. We just like, in order to have the bay door, then we require to close the street.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Thank you, sir. As I look at this property, I'm struck by the fact that this is a street that goes to nowhere because
It's already
yeah,
closed
it's,
on the other side.
basically, it's already closed.
Yes.
It's a shame that you have to go through this formal process to do this. So I see that y'all are already parking trucks there, and, I mean, you wouldn't know that it's a street unless you looked at the map and saw that it was platted as a street. Other than that, it's just a grassy field, and I applaud your application, and I hope that you bring a bazillion jobs to Portsmouth there, and that I wish you all success.
Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any additional questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item S 19-01. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, the chair will now entertain a motion for S 19-01 with conditions. Commissioner G.
I move for acceptance of S 19-01 with conditions.
Is there a second? Commissioner Ricks?
Second.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve S-19-01 with conditions, and you will be voting electronically. This item is approved 7-0. Our next item, Z 19-07, Jim Bento with Fairlead Integrated is requesting to rezone approximately 12.5 acres located at 176 Lincoln Street and 0 Gosport Row along the southern branch of the Elizabeth River from Special District with Conditions SDK to Industrial with Conditions INK. The proposed use of the property is to expand the current boat and yacht repair business to a military waterfront services market to include government and military ships, and to manufacture, assemble, and preservation activities for structures supporting new class ships at Huntington Ingalls Newport News. The future land use plan and the comprehensive plan Build One Portsmouth designated this property as a port facility. The property is also designated as tax map 11, parcels 133 and 133.1. Our staff coordinator is Stacy Porter. Will the applicant or representative for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, members of City Council, and staff. My name is Jim Bento. I work for Fairlead Integrated, and with me is Mr. Fred Pasquin, President of Fairlead Integrated. As you're aware, Fairlead just recently purchased the former Suntex property, also home to the former Ocean Marine Yard, located between Wavy Street and Lincoln Street on the waterfront. We are here today and ask that you favorably consider the rezoning of that site from special district light industrial to heavy industrial. Before Mr. Pasquin details Fairlead's future plans, I would like to make it known that Fairlead hired all the Ocean Marine employees that desired to retain their jobs and come aboard Fairlead. I believe this speaks volumes about Fairlead and its genuine concerns for the well-being of the employees and the community in general. Fairlead has a long and successful history in Portsmouth, and I believe the proposal you have before you is a very progressive and sustainable proposal. At this time, I'd like to turn the briefing over to Mr. Pasquin. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon. In the packet that we prepared for this presentation, on the second sheet, we outlined the 8 reasons why we would ask that this site be rezoned. The first is construction, preservation, outfitting, and storing sections of U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and submarines is an ideal fit for this facility. Second, the facility can add up to 225 net new jobs to Portsmouth, and the majority of those jobs will be high-paying jobs between $18 and $30 an hour. Third is that Fairlead's proven apprenticeship program in Newport News will be replicated at the Wavy Street facility. Fourth, our neighbors across the Elizabeth River, both BAE and NASCO Norfolk, are repairing U.S. Navy surface ships. Our next door neighbor, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, are repairing U.S. Navy carriers and submarines. 6, Fairlead Integrated is a private company with no risk of being absorbed by a government entity. 7, the majority of the industrial work supporting submarine construction needs to be performed in a controlled environment and will be performed indoors, and this will greatly limit both noise and dust emitting processes. And then finally, Earl Industries, and now Fairlead Integrated, have a history of being good corporate citizens to the city of Portsmouth. And we hope our proposed proffers in this application to both adhere to any noise-emitting activities when an event is happening at the pavilion, and the withdrawal of some conditions that are available with an industrial application. We submitted both of those proffers with this application. Hopefully that's seen in goodwill of what our intentions are to be done with this facility. And if there's any questions within the packet that we provided, we'd be happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
Commissioners, are there any questions? Commissioner Coleman?
Hi, thank you. I just have one question.
Sure.
As far as for holding events, not abstaining operations, would that be for concerts as well as other events that maybe like the trick-or-treating or anything that would also?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Anything that would be a disturbance to that event, certainly adhere to. We understand the importance of that venue to the city, and even the impact it had when with it not being available this year. So certainly honor that.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Although your application did not address it, do you have any plans for the North Pier?
Yes, we do. We have, today we submitted a letter of intent of that we would be interested in purchasing that pier. We've provided that to the Portsmouth Planning Commission today. And that interest is because it very much would complement what we intend to do at that facility and its location.
In Mr. Bento's introduction, he mentioned the fact that Fairlead had taken over the ship repair business, but do I understand it correctly that you also bought the marina?
We did not.
Okay.
Those are under two separate parcels, sir, and we simply bought the yacht and boats, dry boat storage, the 12 and a half acres, and did not purchase the marina.
Got it. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very
Yeah,
much, sir.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thompson?
I think it's a wonderful idea, and please don't take this wrong. I just find it difficult to believe that you'll be able to tell the Navy that you can't deliver their parts to them on time because there was a concert at the pavilion.
Yeah, no, I think we have to meet a noise and dust emitting criteria. And if there are a dozen events, or even if there's 24 over the season, that is not something that we cannot plan around. I think, for instance, many of our operations are single shift operations today. It's going to be some time until we go to 2 and 3 shift operations, and I think we will certainly honor that. There's really no reason why we could not do that. And I think I want to caveat that too with many of the operations that we will perform will be inside in insulated buildings, and that's part of the investment that we'll be making to this facility. So that insulates both from heat but also noise, and that's our commitment to that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Madam Secretary?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing
Thank you, sir.
on item Z-19-07. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward at this time, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, the chair is in need of a motion for Z-19-05 with proffers.
It's 7.
Oh, 7, where am I? 7, oh, okay. Z-19-07. Don't want to approve the wrong one now. Commissioner Thompson?
I would like to make a motion that we approve Z-19-07 with conditions and proffers.
Is there a second? Commissioner Thaxton?
I'll second.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve Z-19-07 with conditions and proffers, and you will be voting electronically. This item is approved, 7-0. Our next item, Z-19-05 Churchland. Daniel Heatwall of Ripley Heatwall Company is requesting to rezone approximately 2 acres located at 3109 Tire Neck Road from General Mixed Use GMU to High Density Urban Residential URH in order to build a 48-unit multifamily apartment complex. The future land use map in the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property for commercial use. The property is owned by William Copeland and is further described as Tax Map 815, Parcel 2. Our staff coordinator is Julie Chop. The applicant has requested this application will be deferred indefinitely.
Madam Secretary, because we did have a public hearing on these, is there a need to close the public hearing?
Yes, sir, we will.
Okay.
Hi.
That being the case, can we deal with Z-19-05 and Z-1915 in the same motion?
Yes.
Were they separate? Then they
Yes,
have to be
they
dealt
were.
with separate, okay. The
Okay.
chair's in need of a motion to close.
I'll close the public hearing.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item Z-19-05. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed. We need a motion there.
Commissioners, the chair's in need of a motion to defer indefinitely item Z-19-05. Commissioner Youngblood.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we defer Z-19-05 indefinitely.
Is there a second? Commissioner G.
A second.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to defer indefinitely Z-19-05, and you will be voting electronically. This item is deferred by a vote of 7-0. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-19-15. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, the chair is in now need of a motion to defer indefinitely UP-19-15. Commissioner Thaxton.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion for indefinite deferral of UP-19-15.
Is there a second? Commissioner G.
Second.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to defer UP-19-15 indefinitely, and you will be voting electronically. This item is deferred by a vote of 7-0.
Madam Secretary, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Is that correct?
No, sir. We have to vote on our officers.
Oh, then that does not include the agenda for today.
No, it doesn't.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will be voting on our election of officers for our chair and our vice chairman for the 2020 Planning Commission. I need a motion to vote for our chairman first for the 2020. Commissioner Thaxton.
Commissioner Thaxton.
I'd like to make a motion to vote for the chair. Williamson. Wilson. Sorry, guys.
I do use that occasionally. But I don't think I'll use it here today.
Riggs.
Commissioner Riggs.
Is she going to second? You gonna
Madam
second?
Secretary.
Second.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
Thank
Not a
you.
problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion to appoint Albert Williams as our chairman for the Planning Commission for the 2020, and we are, you will be voting electronically. Our chairman for the 2020 is Albert Williams. Our next item is our vice chairman, and we are in need of a motion. We need a motion. Youngblood.
I nominate Amy Thompson to be the vice chair.
Is there a second?
Riggs.
Commissioner Riggs.
We
Madam
have-
Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve Amy Thompson as our vice chairman for the 2020 Planning Commission, and you will be voting electronically. This item is approved 7-0, and our slate of Officers for our 2020 is Albert Williams, Chairman, and Amy Thompson, Vice Chairman.
Well, let me take the opportunity to thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to serve the city of Portsmouth one more time. Madam Secretary, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Commissioners, will there be any further business? Mr. Baldwin, any further things that we need to discuss?
No, sir.
Hearing none, this meeting is now adjourned.